I talked about the addiction we can have to familiar old patterns in part 1. And these are the patterns that may not serve us in a very healthy or nurturing way. And yet we repeat them. We find ourselves in the same situation again and again. So how to move beyond this? 3 Ds. The idea of distance, the idea of diving in, and the idea of discipline. So the first idea, distance, or you might say disconnection, is having the presence of mind when you find a pattern is being relived and reenacted to step out of it, whether it's for a few minutes, for a few hours, or maybe longer. So for example, if you have a pattern of becoming angry in a certain situation, can you in that moment distance yourself, disconnect from that pattern, and go for a walk instead? Can you breathe slowly instead of yelling? In some way, can you find an alternative that allows you to take a step back and see before your very eyes a pattern that's very familiar to you is beginning to unfold and replay? That's essential. It's essential for the next step, the second step, which is diving in. When we're considering alternative patterns, we may not get the alternative right first time. We may not see the perfect solution that's going to work instead of the old unhealthy pattern. So we have to have a certain degree of faith. It's a bit of trial and error. We have to experiment. And yet our brain, remember, is always tempted to go back to the familiar. So can you choose the faith to experiment, to try something different, to try something new, over the familiarity of something that we understand and we can predict, but which isn't healthy? Can you choose faith over familiarity? Are you willing to dive in and experiment with different ways of doing things, different ways of having a conversation, or approaching your daily routine, or conducting yourself in a relationship, or showing up at work in a certain way? That's all well and good to have decided on a different pattern and having the faith to pursue it. The third and perhaps the most difficult and challenging step is the idea of discipline, of being devoted to this different way of doing things, of really seeing the experiment through, not for a day or two, but for many days or weeks or months. If you mentally negotiate with yourself and say, well, I'll try something different for a day and see how it works, or no, this new path is taking too much time, I don't have the energy to do it, it's too difficult, then you will, by definition, fall back into the old familiar pattern. You have to have the self-discipline, you have to be devoted to following a new path without any mental commentary or negotiation. Once you've decided you're going to try a different way, you have to commit to it for certainly many days, if not weeks, and then review, see how it unfolds, but not after just a day or two. So if you have that presence of mind to disconnect and distance yourself, if you have the willingness and the courage to dive in and choose faith over familiarity, and if you have that sense of discipline to be devoted to what you have chosen, to really try it out and explore all the potential it has, then when you next ask the question, how is this new habit, this new pattern, this new way of doing things, how is that serving me? Hopefully the answer will be a lot more positively than the old pattern used to serve me.